Try depositing a lie into a marriage and see what kind of interest it earns. I've spent most of my adult life watching other people's secrets rot from the inside out. It's what I do for a living, or at least what I tell myself I do for a living. My name is Noah Mercer. I'm 36, and I run a small security tech outfit on the east side of Portland, Maine. Outfit makes it sound bigger than it is. It's me, a rented office in the basement of our old Victorian house on Maple Street, a few contracts that come and go, and a bank account that never stays comfortable for long. I install cameras, audit digital systems, and, when clients are desperate enough, help them figure out what the truth is when the story they're being told doesn't line up with reality. The irony of this whole thing is that I didn't want to need my own services. Upstairs, Maple Street looks like a catalog life, the kind my wife Lila loves to curate. The parlor has the right antique lamps. The kitchen is always staged with a vase that changes every season, and the porch swing is painted a shade of white I can never remember the name of. If you stood outside and watched us through the windows at the right hour, you'd think we were one of those couples who made it. But a house can be a display case for a marriage that's already cracked. Lila works public relations for Portland General Hospital. She's good at it. She knows how to choose the perfect word for a headline, how to smile like the room belongs to her, and how to make other people feel like they're lucky to be in her orbit. She also makes a little more than twice what I do, and she brings that up the way some people bring up the weather, casually, constantly, and as if there's nothing to discuss. I don't think she means to be cruel. I think she's just built a world where usefulness equals worth, and money is the easiest way to measure usefulness. She orders wine by pointing at the price, not the grape. That's her. She likes things that signal upward movement. I stopped pretending not to notice it a while ago. The strangest part is that if you asked her, she'd tell you we were happy. Maybe she even believes it. Lila is so practiced at spinning narratives for a living that sometimes I think she forgets which version she's in. That Tuesday morning in October started like most mornings in our house. Lila in a rush, the smell of coffee in the air, my laptop open before I'd even finished drinking it. I was reviewing a file for a client, routine stuff, a suspected insurance scam, when I heard her heels tapping across the hardwood like a countdown. She floated into the kitchen with a glow that felt almost rehearsed. Her hair was perfect, her coat draped on one arm, and her whole face was lit up with a kind of excitement that didn't belong to any Tuesday I remembered. "Surprise," she said. In her right hand was a grainy black and white photo. She held it like a prize. At first, I didn't register what it was. My brain tried to file it under a dozen wrong categories. New house decor, some hospital campaign, a joke she was about to spring on me. Then I saw the familiar oval frame and soft, speckled shadows. My stomach tightened. "We're having a baby," Lila said, voice bright, nearly sing-song. 12 weeks. I actually started to stand up before I realized I was doing it. My chair scraped the tile. I felt dizzy, like someone had spun the room while I wasn't watching. We've been trying for 3 years. 3 years of calendars and tests and quiet arguments that started with maybe next month and ended with silence. 3 years of clinics that smelled like disinfectant and hope. 3 years of my wife closing her eyes before every appointment like she was bracing for a punch. The last doctor had been gentle but blunt. Lila had fertility issues that would take treatment. Real treatment. Expensive treatment. The kind of treatment you don't afford on an unstable small business and a mortgage that eats your paychecks. We talked about it for one night, just one. Lila cried, then went quiet, then said we would revisit it later. Later never came. She threw herself into work. I threw myself into mine. We floated like two people on different sides of a frozen lake, waving at each other from a distance. And now suddenly this, a miracle, I said, because that's what you say when your wife looks at you like the world has just cracked open and handed her everything she wants. She laughed, short and breathless. I know. I didn't want to tell you until I was sure. I took the photo from her. It felt too thin between my fingers like a receipt. The image showed a tiny shape, a pale little bean floating in a dark field. For a moment, I felt something real, something warm, the kind of ache people chase for years. I wanted to let it flood me. I wanted to be the husband in the commercial who sweeps his wife into a hug and spins her around. But something snagged. Where did you get this done? I asked. Yesterday. That new clinic downtown. She said it fast, like the words were waiting. Dr. Morrison. He said everything looks perfect. Morrison, I repeated. I didn't know any Dr. Morrison. But Portland is full of doctors I don't know. Yeah, he said I'm 12 weeks along. She slid her phone out and was already scrolling. Look, I've been thinking about names. Maybe Mariah if it's a girl, or Kingston if it's a boy. Kingston, I said, staring at the photo again. What? It's strong. Sure. She didn't notice my tone. Lila rarely notices my tone when she's excited. I studied the image. Not in a medical way. I'm not a doctor, but in the way a man studies a contract before he signs it. The way my clients call me to study things that don't feel right. 12 weeks. But no sickness. No fatigue. No strange cravings. Not even the tiny shifts I'd read about late at night while Lila slept beside me. Her back turned, the light from my phone tucked under the blanket like contraband. To be honest, I said carefully, you seem fine. I am fine, she snapped, and then caught herself. Her smile came back like a curtain dropping. Not everyone gets sick. Noah, can you please just be happy? Her eyes were shiny, not crying, not yet, but close enough that I felt the old reflex to retreat. This is what she's wanted, I told myself. This is what you wanted too once. Of course I'm happy, I said. I leaned forward and kissed her forehead. She smelled like expensive perfume and the kind of confidence that doesn't ask permission. She exhaled and melted into me for a second, the way she used to. Then she pulled away, already grabbing her keys. I have to go. I'm late. I couldn't wait to tell you. She paused at the doorway. Don't call anyone yet, okay? Not your sister, not your mother, nobody. I want us to enjoy this first. Just us. My sister. That name rang like a bell in my head. Harper. Dr. Harper Miles. Radiologist. Too sharp for her own good. The kind of person who looks at a picture and sees everything you missed. Sure, I said, because that's what you say when you don't want to start a fight at 7:30 a.m. Lila's smile returned. She came back, kissed my cheek, and left in a flutter of wool coat and optimism. The front door closed. Her car backed out. The house went quiet in that special way old houses do, settling around your bones. I stood there with the ultrasound still in my hand. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe 3 years of disappointment had trained my nervous system to expect the rug to get yanked. Maybe I was so used to investigating other people's lies that I now saw fraud everywhere, even in my own kitchen. Still, the image was too clean. Not as a photo, as a story. The clinic downtown. A doctor I'd never heard her mention. 12 weeks without a single symptom. A sudden miracle right after we'd stopped talking about it. I looked at the light printout again. The edges were crisp, almost glossy. The text along the border was in a font I couldn't place. My throat went dry. I hated myself for what I did next, but I did anyway. I grabbed my phone, snapped a picture of the ultrasound, and sent it to Harper with a quick message. Guess what? You're going to be an aunt. I stared at the screen like I was waiting for a verdict. Harper replied in less than 5 minutes. Call me. Now. And don't let Lila hear you. My blood went cold. And just like that, the picture on the table stopped being a promise and became a question I didn't know if I wanted answered. I waited until Lila's car disappeared at the end of Maple Street before I moved. That little window between her leaving and me calling Harper felt like standing on a ledge, deciding whether to jump or climb back down. I took my coffee downstairs to my office in the basement. People think basement office means some cozy den with a desk and a bookshelf. Mine is more like a bunker that happens to have Wi-Fi. Concrete walls, an old rug that never quite dries in October, stacks of equipment cases, cables coiled like sleeping snakes. The place smells like solder, dust, and the bitter end of coffee you forgot on a client's doorstep. It's my sanctuary. Also, the part of the house Lila never posts on social media. I shut the door, sat, and called Harper. She picked up on the second ring. Are you alone? Yes. Is she at work? Yeah. What's going on? There was a beat of silence. When Harper finally spoke, her voice had that clipped calm she uses when she's trying not to panic a patient. Noah, that photo isn't from any clinic in Maine. I blinked. What do you mean? I mean the formatting is wrong. The scale markers, the header, the measurement layout. It doesn't match any system hospitals here use. I pulled the ultrasound printout closer, like proximity might change what it was. Maybe it's a private clinic with different software. No, she said it gently, like she'd already walked through that possibility and found it empty. Even private clinics use regulated systems. This one looks European. The contrast and resolution are too clean. The image itself is too textbook. I don't understand. Look at the fetal position and size. If this were 12 weeks, the shape would be different. What she showed you is closer to 8 weeks, maybe less. And even then, it's not aligned the way a real scan would be. I felt my jaw tighten. So what are you saying? That she lied about how far along she is? Harper sighed. Noah, I'm saying the whole thing is fake. I'm saying it looks downloaded. The words sat there between us like a blade on a table. Fake. Downloaded. I stared at the photo so hard my eyes started to sting. The little pale oval in the center suddenly looked less like a promise and more like something staged. The crisp edges, the unreal clarity, the neat little numbers along the sides. Why would she do that? I said, more to myself than to Harper. That's what we need to figure out. Harper's tone sharpened. Listen to me carefully. Do not confront her yet. My chest went hot. Harper, she's my wife. If she's lying, there's a reason, and you don't know what it is. If you confront her now, she'll have time to rewrite the story, cover tracks, or make you look like the one losing it. You need evidence. Evidence, I repeated. I realized my hands were shaking. Real evidence, she said. Not a hunch, not a vibe. Proof. Because whatever she's doing, she planned this. The photo wasn't an accident. A part of me wanted to tell Harper she was overreacting, that she was being clinical, hyperlogical, the way Lila always teased her for being. I wanted to believe Lila had walked into some clinic, burst with tears, and gotten a real miracle. But another part of me, the part that makes me good at my job, was already stitching together the loose threads. The clinic I'd never heard of. The doctor's name that slid out too smoothly. The insistence that I not tell anyone. The way she asked me to just be happy, like happiness was a switch I could flip on command. The fact that I felt more confused than ecstatic. How sure are you? I asked. As sure as I can be without holding the original scan in my hands. Her voice softened. Noah, I'm sorry. I know what this means. I know how long you've wanted this. I swallowed hard. My throat had that dry, sandpapered feeling that comes right before you say something you don't want to admit even to yourself. What do? You do what you do for everyone else. Harper paused, choosing her words carefully. You watch, you listen, and you document. If she's running a con, you need to know how deep it goes. And if she's not, if I'm wrong, then you'll have lost a few days to paranoia, not your whole life to a lie. I leaned back in my chair and let the ceiling swim for a moment. It wasn't just the pregnancy claim. It was the idea that my wife might be dropping a story like this into our home like a seed for something else. 3 years ago, I would have laughed at the thought. 2 years ago, maybe I would have argued. Recently, I wasn't sure what I would have done. I can do that, I heard myself say. Can you? Harper asked. I looked around my office, at the camera cases, the audio recorders, the laptop with the open client file, the tracking software I use to reconstruct timelines for strangers. Yes, I said again, firmer. I can. Good. And Noah, be careful. People don't fake a pregnancy for no reason. Not unless they want something. Or they're scared. Or both. After we hung up, I didn't move for a long time. Outside the basement window, I could hear Maple Street waking up fully. A dog barking. Someone's car door slamming. A kid on a bike rattling past the porch. Normal life, carrying on, indifferent to the fact that my marriage might have just slipped into a different category of truth. I laid the ultrasound on the desk and studied it as if it were a suspect's passport. I found myself doing what I always do, looking for telltales. A mismatch, a smudge, a corner cut too clean, numbers that didn't belong where they sat. Anything that would make the story fall apart under bright light. I'd built my business on the premise that the truth is discoverable if you're willing to look. That people's lies leave footprints. That deception is a craft, and like any craft, it has mistakes. But doing it to your own wife is different. There's a private humiliation baked into it, like you're admitting the one person you vowed to trust is now just another case file. I thought of Lila upstairs earlier, her smile wide enough to fill the kitchen. The way she'd said, "We're having a baby," like she was announcing a promotion. Was that joy real, or was it performance? I tried to replay the moment. Her expression, the speed of her answers, the way she deflected whenever I asked a practical question. Maybe she wanted to believe the lie herself. Or maybe she'd chosen it because it was the easiest way to get me where she needed me. I opened my laptop and pulled up the digital dashboard I'd installed months ago on our shared home system. I hadn't looked at it in a while. Back then, I'd installed it during a brief stretch when Lila had been staying out late for work, and I'd felt myself spiraling. I'm not proud of it. I'm also not the kind of man who pretends he didn't do what he did. The software had been dormant. It captured logins, synced devices, location pings when phones hit our Wi-Fi, and a few other things I told myself I might need someday. I never expected someday to be now. I stared at the blinking cursor on the screen and felt the decision settle in my bones. 3 years of trying. A miracle on a Tuesday. A photo too good to be true. Whatever Lila was doing, I was about to learn the shape of it. Not because I wanted revenge. Not because I was eager to catch her in something. Because if the ultrasound was a lie, then everything that followed would be built on it. And I didn't want to wake up 6 months from now, living inside a story I never agreed to. I closed the laptop, picked up the photo one more time, and slid it into a folder marked with nothing but a date. Then I waited for my wife to come home, wearing the face of a man who still believed in miracles. Inside, I started counting the days. Once you decide someone might be lying, your home turns into a crime scene without the tape. Every ordinary moment starts carrying double meaning. A glance becomes a signal. A sentence becomes a setup. And you start noticing how much of your peace depended on not looking too closely. For 3 days after Harper's call, I watched Lila the way I'd watched suspects for clients. Quietly, patiently, without giving away that I'd stepped out of the marriage story she was telling me and into the one she didn't want me to read. It wasn't hard in the technical sense. I've made a career of spotting inconsistencies. What was hard was sitting across from my wife while she smiled at me like nothing had changed. Hard was hearing her say, "Our baby," and feeling my stomach lock up instead of soften. Hard was realizing how quickly trust can turn into a performance you have to fake back. The first shift came with money. Tuesday night, she said she needed prenatal vitamins. The good kind, she added, as if there were cheap ones that could ruin everything. She asked for $50 in cash. I gave it to her without comment. If I'd refused right away, I'd be lighting a flare before I knew where the landmines were. Wednesday, it was $100 for special food her doctor recommended. She came home with a bag, set it on the counter, and talked about nutrients like she'd memorized a brochure. I watched her place everything in the fridge carefully, then closed the door with a satisfied nod. I didn't see her touch any of it afterward. Thursday, she upped the stakes. We were eating takeout Chinese because she claimed the smell of cooking made her nauseous. She didn't look sick. She looked restless, scrolling through her phone between bites. Halfway through dinner, she set her chopsticks down and said, "I need to see a specialist." I kept my voice steady. "What kind?" "High-risk pregnancy consult." Her tone was soft, practiced, because of my history and my age. "Your age?" I asked before I could stop myself. Lila was 33. Her history was the fertility diagnosis we'd never followed through on. Not a high-risk label. "It's standard," she said quickly. "Dr. Morrison wants a full workup. It's going to cost $3,000. $3,000. The number made my pulse jump, but what hit harder was how casually she delivered it, like she was asking me to pick up milk. "Insurance won't cover it," she added. "They say it's elective." "Elective?" I repeated. "At 12 weeks. She sighed like my question was an inconvenience. "Noah, do you want to argue about this, or do you want to keep our baby safe?" There it was, the lever. She didn't shove it. She just slid it into place, so the conversation could only tip one way. "I'm not arguing," I said. "I just don't get why you can't see someone at Portland General. You work there." Her jaw tightened, and for a second the smile fell right off her face. "I don't want people at work in my business." This is private. Does anyone even know yet? They don't, she said too fast. I mean, maybe some suspect something. You know how it is. I didn't know. I knew the sound of a story being patched in real time. I nodded. Okay. She studied me, waiting for resistance. Okay. I repeated softer. If it keeps the baby safe, it's worth it. Relief flashed across her face. She reached for my hand and held it a second longer than usual. Transfer it to my account tomorrow. Sure, I said, and smiled the way a husband who believed would smile. Inside, Harper's warning ticked like a clock. Don't confront. Get proof. That night, I called Riley Hart, an old friend from my younger, Messier days. He used to be a cop before he quit and started his own consulting firm. Riley's built like he was carved from a tree stump, slow to speak, sharp when he does. He's seen every kind of hustle and has zero patience for people who think they're clever. We met at Murphy's Pub Friday afternoon. Dim booths, decent burgers, and a culture of minding your own business. I laid it out for him. The ultrasound, Harper's verdict, the money requests, my gut twisting into something I couldn't name. Riley didn't flinch. So you think she's faking a pregnancy to drain you? I think she's lying about something, I said, and I need to know what. Smart not to call her out yet, he replied. She'll rewrite the script if she gets scared. I want to know where she goes when she says she has appointments, who she's meeting, where the money goes. He nodded. I'll tail her. You handle the digital side. This stays between us. Riley gave me a look that said he understood what marriage betrayal does to a person. She won't know she's being watched unless you want her to. That evening, I handed Lila the $3,000 in cash. She opened the envelope with a kind of bright hunger she didn't even try to hide. Then she kissed my cheek and said, You're going to be a wonderful father. The words felt like they floated above us, disconnected. On Monday, she walked out in her most expensive suit and told me her consult would take hours. Riley was already parked down the street. I was in the basement with my laptop open. At 1:30 p.m., Lila drove downtown. Not toward any clinic. Not toward any hospital. She parked in the financial district outside the Pine Needle, an upscale bar full of glass and quiet money. Riley's voice came through my earpiece. She's inside. Looks like she's meeting someone. Tall guy. BMW. Photo. I asked. On it. 20 minutes later, the image hit my inbox. Lila sat in a corner booth leaning forward, animated, alive in a way I hadn't seen at home in months. Across from her was a man I didn't recognize. Mid-30s, sharp haircut, expensive watch, smooth posture. They looked like people who shared a plan, not a patient and a doctor. My stomach went hollow. I ran the BMW's plate through a database I use for work. The name came back instantly. Dr. Julian Royce. Surgeon. Portland General Hospital. The same hospital my wife worked at. The same hospital she claimed she didn't want in her business. I stared at the screen until the letters stopped feeling like letters and started feeling like a doorway. The lie had just grown a face, and I had a feeling I'd only seen the surface of what Lila and Dr. Royce were building behind my back. A con doesn't sprint. It walks you forward until the next step feels inevitable. Lila had found that rhythm. Every few days, she added another urgent layer to her pregnancy story, each one heavier, each one aimed at my wallet, and each one framed so that questioning her sounded like endangering a child. Monday morning, she came downstairs with a mug clutched in both hands, eyes damp and wide. I need to see another specialist, she said. The first doctor saw abnormalities. He's sending me to a high-risk expert. How much? I asked, keeping my voice soft. She waited half a breath. 36,000. All my face show shock. Inside, the number felt less like medicine and more like a harvest. She watched me closely, ready for the smallest crack. It has to happen now, she continued. They'll start treatment to prevent miscarriage. Noah, I could lose the baby without this. Then she cried, good tears, controlled but convincing. I held her because it was safer to stay inside the role she expected. We'll find a way, I said. I'll sell investments, take a loan, whatever it takes. Relief slid across her too fast. You're the best husband in the world, she whispered. For a second, she looked almost tender. Then she pulled away and went upstairs to rest, already texting someone I couldn't see. The moment she was out of sight, I called Riley. She wants 36, I said. I'm going to pay her, but not with real money. Riley understood. 6 months earlier, his old unit had seized a batch of high-quality counterfeit bills. Good enough to fool anyone at home, not good enough to fool a bank. Some of that evidence was supposed to be destroyed. Some of it, he told me carefully, had disappeared into the cracks of a system that never keeps perfect inventory. 2 days later, he arrived with a plain black briefcase. 36, as requested, he said. Your wife won't spot it, but if her partner deposits it, the machines will. The paper felt right. The ink even carried that faint chemical bite real bills have. I hated the plan, even as I accepted it. I wasn't looking for thrill. I was looking for proof that Lila's story was a pipeline to someone else. If I was wrong, I could still swallow my pride. If I was right, I needed a clean trail. Wednesday morning, I placed the briefcase on the kitchen table and waited. When Lila walked in, she froze. Then her eyes lit up. What's that? She asked, voice carefully small. This is everything we have. I told her. Cash, like you said they need. I pulled it from savings. She opened the case and inhaled like she'd been holding her breath for days. Oh, Noah, I promise you won't regret this. I'm sure I won't, I said, and it wasn't a bluff. She kissed me, shut the case, and left for her appointment. Riley was already parked down the street. Heading downtown, he reported. And yep, she's at Julian's building. She went in with the case. So much for doctors and privacy. I stared at the feed from our porch camera, feeling a dull ache where hope used to live. An hour later, Riley said, she's coming out. She left the case upstairs. My chest went still. She wasn't paying for treatment. She was delivering a payday. Julian just left, Riley added, driving toward First National. He's going to bank it, I said. Looks like it. I pictured him walking into that marble lobby in his tailored suit, confident the world would behave for him. Banks don't care about confidence. They care about scanners. A few minutes later, Riley muttered, he's out, angry, on the phone. Stay on him. A beat. He went back inside, arguing. That told me everything about the kind of man he was. People who think they're untouchable always return to demand a different outcome. When Julian came out again, 2 security guards followed. A cruiser pulled up. Riley's voice dropped. They're cuffing him. This is real. I closed my eyes. No celebration, just a hard line of consequence settling into place. I hadn't ruined his life. He'd carried the match into his own pocket. My phone buzzed. Lila, treatment went well. Doctor wants me back tomorrow. Might be more costs. Her timing was almost impressive. I typed a reply that kept her blind. Whatever it takes, honey. I love you. Before sunrise Thursday, Riley called. Julian got arrested at the bank yesterday. Counterfeit charges. He came back yelling he'd been set up. Security called police. Police called the feds. He's out on bail, but it's federal now. Good, I said. My voice didn't shake this time. An hour later, Lila drifted into the kitchen pale and jittery, phone glued to her hand, trying to look normal and failing. Everything okay? I asked. Word drama, she said too fast. I might stay late. Of course, I replied, watching her swallow hard. She didn't notice the calm in my voice. She didn't know her partner had tripped the wire I'd laid. Julian's arrest wasn't the end of her con. It was my opening. And while she scrambled to patch her story, I was already moving to phase 2. When a lie starts to crumble, people don't politely step aside. They scramble. They look for the nearest door, the highest ledge, the fastest way to save themselves. I've seen it in every kind of case: cheating partners, insurance scams, corporate theft. The moment pressure hits, loyalty turns into a math problem. Lila tried to act normal after Julian's arrest. That was her first mistake. Normal didn't fit her anymore. Thursday night, she drifted around the house like someone who'd walked into the wrong play and was waiting for the stage manager to whisper her lines. Her phone never left her hand. She kept stepping into rooms to take work calls, and she came back with a level smile that didn't reach her eyes. At one point, she stood by the sink and asked, out of nowhere, "Do you think the FBI ever gets things wrong?" I glanced up from the newspaper. Sure. What? Just something I heard at the hospital. Rumors. She shrugged and tried to laugh. People love rumors, I said. She watched me for a beat, searching my face for panic or suspicion. When she didn't find it, she retreated upstairs. The house felt like a chessboard now, and she knew a piece had moved without her seeing it. Friday morning, my phone rang from an unfamiliar number. "This is Noah Mercer?" a woman asked. "Yes, this is Sabrina Wells. I need to talk to you about Lila." Sabrina was Lila's closest friend, the kind of friend who hosts champagne birthdays and calls it low-key. She ran a luxury beauty clinic downtown. She'd always treated me like a detail in Lila's life, not a person. If she was calling me directly, something was burning. "What about her?" I asked. "Not on the phone. Can you meet me at my clinic in an hour? Please." Her voice was tight in a way that didn't sound like drama. It sounded like fear. I said yes. Sabrina's clinic was exactly what I remembered. White marble, soft lighting, the kind of silence that costs money. She met me in a private office at the back. Her suit was perfect, her makeup flawless, but her hands wouldn't stop fidgeting with a pen. She didn't ease into it. "I know about the pregnancy," she said. I kept my expression neutral. "Okay, I know it's fake." Even when you expect a sentence, hearing it out loud changes its weight. The words landed clean, like a door slamming. "That's a serious accusation," I said. "It's true." She leaned forward, voice rushing now. "Lila told me 3 weeks ago. She said she needed help making it believable." "Help how?" Sabrina swallowed. "Documents, test results, ultrasound reports." She wanted a paper trail in case someone asked questions. My stomach tightened. "You helped her." I did. Her eyes flashed with shame and panic at the same time. "She told me you controlled all the money, that you were manipulative, that she needed cash to leave you safely. I thought I was helping a friend get out of a bad situation." She looked at me hard, as if daring me to interrupt. I didn't. I wanted every word. "Then Julian called me yesterday," she continued. "He was panicking. He said the FBI thinks I'm involved because of the records. Noah, I'm not going to prison for her." There it was. The reason she'd come. Not conscience. Survival. But survival still produces truth if you let it talk. "What do you have?" I asked. She opened a drawer and pulled out a thick manila folder. Copies of everything we made. The fake reports. The lab printouts. Text messages between me and Lila. And recordings. Recordings? I repeated. The moment Julian got arrested, I started recording my calls with Lila. I had a feeling she'd try to blame me. I needed protection. She tapped her phone, opened an audio file, and slid across the desk so I could hear. Lila's voice filled the room. Bright, confident, almost cheerful. She wasn't frightened. She wasn't desperate. She was pleased with herself. She talked about me like I was a problem she'd solved. She talked about my savings like they were already hers. She talked about how easy it was to keep me paying as long as she stayed one step ahead with the pregnancy story. Hearing your wife speak like that isn't an explosion. It's a slow, terrible settling. Like something in your chest finally stops trying to argue with reality. Sabrina turned the file off and stared at me. "I'll testify. I'll cooperate. I'll give you whatever you need. Just don't let me go down with her." I studied her. In another life, I might have pitted the mess she'd walked into. But I wasn't in that life anymore. "You should have thought about that before you helped her," I said quietly. She flinched. "I know. I was wrong." I took a long breath to steady myself. "I want copies of everything. The documents, the texts, the recordings. You can have them." She shoved the folder toward me like it was a lifeline she was letting go of. By the time I walked out of that clinic, the plan in my head had already turned into action. I called my lawyer from the parking lot, then my accountant, then my bank. I didn't sleep on it. People think big decisions need time. The truth is, when you finally see what's happening, time just gives the other side room to move. By evening, I had filed for divorce, frozen every joint account, and taken out restraining orders against both Lila and Julian. The legal system moves fast when you give it clean evidence. At 6 o'clock a process, server knocked on our door. I stayed in the kitchen while Lila opened it. I watched her face go from confusion to alarm to something that looked like vertigo as she read the first page. "Noah," she said, voice rising, "what is this?" "It's divorce," I said. Her head snapped up. "What are you doing? Are you serious?" "I'm protecting myself from a criminal conspiracy to defraud me." She laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. "Conspiracy? I'm pregnant. No, I said. You aren't. And I can prove it. She took a step toward me, like she was about to argue on instinct. You can't prove anything. I pulled out my phone and hit play. Her own voice spilled into our kitchen. Lazy confidence, the casual cruelty, the plan laid out in plain language. As she listened, the color drained from her face. Her mouth opened, then closed. Her eyes flicked toward the stairs like escape might be hiding there. Where did you get this? She whispered. From someone who decided they didn't want to go to prison for your plan. Her expression twisted. Sabrina recorded me? She's cooperating. She handed over the fake records you two made. For a moment, she looked ready to explode. Instead, she folded inward, then switched tactics the way she always did. Noah, listen. I made a mistake. I was stressed. We can fix this. Stop, I said, my voice steady enough to surprise even me. You weren't stressed. You were laughing. She tried tears, then anger, then bargaining. I let her cycle through all of it without moving. Each tactic slid off the evidence like rain off glass. Finally, she went quiet. What happens now? She asked, smaller. Now you move out tonight. I slid the restraining order across to her. 2 hours to pack essentials. After that, you can't come back. Her hand shook as she read it. Where am I supposed to go? I don't know, I said, and it isn't my job anymore. She stared at me for a long, stunned second. Then she went upstairs and started packing. At 9, she came down with suitcases and eyes that had dried into something colder than tears. This isn't over, she said at the door. I'll fight you for half. I nodded once. Good luck claiming marital assets while federal fraud is on the table. She didn't answer. She walked out, and the door shut behind her with the kind of final sound you feel more than hear. The house went silent, and for the first time in years, that silence felt like space to breathe, not a punishment. But the truth I'd won was about to cost me more than a marriage. I just didn't know it yet. I thought the hardest part would be catching Lila. I was wrong. The hardest part was what happened after. In the 3 weeks that followed her leaving, my life turned into a chain reaction. One consequence hit, then another in places I didn't expect to be vulnerable. Julian was indicted on federal counterfeiting charges. Portland General fired him quietly and suspended his medical license, pending investigation. His wife filed for divorce within days, and his spotless public image split down the middle like wet paper. Lila was charged with conspiracy to commit fraud and forging medical documents. The hospital board cut her loose fast once they saw my evidence and understood what a reputation leak could do. Sabrina cooperated, got immunity, and still lost clients who didn't want her name anywhere near the mess. From a distance, it looked like justice unfolding cleanly. Inside my house, it felt like walking across broken glass and socks. At first, people called to check on me. A few friends brought food, sat at my kitchen table, and shook their heads in disbelief. I assumed that would be the arc of it: shock, support, and slow recovery. Then the calls changed. The first one came from Mark and Elise Turner, our closest couple friend for 5 years. We'd done holidays together, trips to the coast, late-night board games in the living room. They knew our marriage. They'd seen Lila's sharp edges. They'd seen me bend around them. Mark's voice was stiff. Noah, Elisa, and I have been talking. My stomach tightened before he even said the next line. About what? About what you did to Lila. The fake money. The arrest. The way you went after her job. I stared at the wall, waiting for the joke that didn't come. She tried to steal $50,000 from me. I said slowly. With a fake pregnancy. That's your version, Mark replied, cool and certain. Lila told us something different. A cold numbness crept up my arms. What did she tell you? That she was trying to leave a toxic marriage. That you controlled all the money. That she felt trapped. She said the pregnancy story was her way to get enough cash to leave safely. I could barely process the words. The audacity of it was almost elegant. She'd taken her own crime and turned it into a rescue narrative with me as the threat. Mark, I said, forcing my voice not to rise, I have recordings of her laughing about this plan, calling me an easy target, planning to disappear with Julian after draining my savings. Recordings you made without her consent, he shot back. That's invasive, Noah. It makes you look exactly like what she described. The room spun, Not from confusion, but from the realization that I was watching a second con unfold, this time in public. Are you seriously blaming me? I asked. We're saying your response was vindictive, he said. She made a bad choice. But what you did was extreme. The word extreme felt like a slap. I tried again, quietly, giving him the courtesy of reason. She wasn't making a bad choice. She was committing a crime with a partner. She wasn't escaping me, Mark. She was planning a lifestyle upgrade funded by my savings. He exhaled, a sound heavy with judgment. We don't think we can stay friends with someone who'd destroy his wife's life like that. I'm sorry. The line went dead. I sat there holding the phone for a long time after the call ended, as if it might ring again and correct itself. It didn't. Over the next week, 3 more couples made similar calls. Different words, same shape. Lila's new story moved through our circle like smoke. In her version, she was a scared woman clawing for freedom. I was a controlling husband who chose revenge over compassion. Anyone who sided with me was endorsing harm. It would have been easier if they were casual friends. But these were people I trusted. People who'd hug me at anniversaries. People who'd said things like, "You two are solid," when Lila smiled through gritted teeth. Now I was the villain in a story I'd never agreed to act in. At night, alone in my house, the doubts started to hiss. Had I been controlling? Had I missed something? Had I made her feel cornered in ways I refused to see? I replayed the last 2 years. The fights about money. The times I asked where she'd been. The tracking software I'd installed months earlier when my gut told me she was slipping away. I knew that wasn't a proud moment. I knew it could be read badly. But then I remembered her voice in Sabrina's recordings. The calm contempt. The laughter. The certainty that I was nothing but a platform to stand on until she could step somewhere higher. Whatever was wrong in our marriage, fraud wasn't an act of survival. Theft wasn't self-defense. And anyone who believed it didn't understand what she'd actually done. Still, it hurt. The final blow came from my mother. We talked every Sunday. She raised me alone after my father left, working 2 jobs, pushing me into college with the kind of stubborn love that makes a kid believe he could be decent no matter what he came from. If anyone knew my character, it was her. That Sunday, her voice was tight before she even said hello. "Noah, I'm disappointed in you." I went still. About what? About Lila. About how you handled it. "Mom, she tried to steal from me. She faked a pregnancy." "I know that's what you say." Her sigh sounded old and tired. "But your marriage was already over. You could have let her go with dignity. Instead, you humbled her, set her up, dragged her into a public scandal." I gripped the phone hard enough my knuckles ached. She dragged herself there. "Money isn't everything," she said softly, and somehow that was worse than the angry version. Fighting over it makes you look petty. Even my mother was taking the version that painted me as cruel. When I hung up, I walked through the silent house like I didn't recognize it. It wasn't just Lila I'd lost. It was the social world around her, the easy belonging I'd assumed was real. By December, I'd stopped going out. I kept my head down, worked longer hours, and watched the legal machine roll forward like a slow storm. Lila and Julian would face trial in spring. On paper, I had everything I needed to win. In life, I felt hollowed out. One night at Murphy's, Riley listened to me vent until my beer went warm. He didn't interrupt. He just waited, then leaned forward. "You keep telling people your side," he said, "but you're not showing them who she really is." "I've told them." My laugh sounded thin. "They don't want to hear it." Riley took out his phone. "That's because they're hearing her story with no friction. How about something that adds friction?" He played a file. Lila's voice came through, casual and sharp, talking to someone I recognized from our group. She was tearing into them, calling them boring, describing them as useful only until she and Julian had enough money to leave town. Another file followed, her voice spilling secrets about friends who defended her, contempt for my mother, criticism she'd been hiding behind smiles for years. It wasn't one recording. It was a pattern. Hours of it. I sat there stunned, not because I doubted it, but because I hadn't realized how wide her net was. She hadn't only been conning me. She'd been performing for everyone. Riley watched my face. "You send these out, and the story flips. Fast." I thought about the couples who'd cut me off. My mother's voice full of disappointment. The friends who call me dangerous without asking for proof. And I thought about the truth sitting on Riley's phone. I'm done being quiet, I said. The next day, I created anonymous email accounts and sent the recordings to everyone who'd taken her side. Not all at once, targeted. Each person got the set that showed what Lila really thought of them. I also sent a full evidence packet to local media. Pregnancy scam timeline, forged documents, money trail, and now audio showing she'd been lying to everyone, not just me. The response was immediate. Mark called first. His voice shook. No, I didn't know. I'm sorry. We were wrong. Elise called an hour later crying. I feel sick. We defended her. We cut you out. She was laughing at us. My mother's apology came late that night. I should have trusted you. I'm so sorry. Apologies kept coming for days. Some sounded sincere. Some sounded like panic at being exposed. I accepted what I could and let the rest float away. Vindication felt good, yes. But it didn't rebuild the part of me that had learned how quickly people can choose a story over a person. The media story detonated the real bomb. Once Lila's recordings went public, investigators found more than my case. She talked openly with Julian about forging records for others, about leveraging hospital access to pull private information, about expanding their scheme past me. The pregnancy fraud wasn't a one-time play. It was a doorway into something bigger. Julian, staring down a mountain of new charges, flipped. He cooperated with prosecutors and handed over evidence of a wider conspiracy. Lila refused a plea deal, convinced she could talk her way out. In court, the prosecution played her own recordings. Not just the ones about me, but the ones about the bigger operations. The jury took 3 hours. Guilty on all counts: conspiracy, forgery, identity theft, money laundering. The judge sentenced her to 8 years in federal prison. Julian got 12. When I watched her led away in cuffs, I didn't feel triumph. I felt a kind of exhausted sadness for the person she chose to become. Then that sadness hardened into acceptance. Choices have weight. She'd picked hers. 6 months later, I sold the old Victorian on Maple Street. Too many echoes. I bought a smaller place across town with windows that faced a garden instead of past. My business grew. People heard what I'd uncovered and started calling me with their own suspicions. Betrayal is contagious in a town like Portland. I worked. I rebuilt. I learned to trust slowly. Years later, I remarried a woman named Claire who's honest in the plain, unglamorous way that feels like sunlight after a long storm. We're expecting a child now. Real doctor visits, real ultrasounds, real excitement that doesn't come with a price tag. I visited Lila once in prison near the end of her sentence. She looked smaller, older. She apologized. She admitted greed. She admitted she'd wanted a life that made her feel superior and thought she could take it without consequences. I forgave her, not because she deserved it, but because I didn't want to carry her weight anymore. Forgiving wasn't trusting. It was closing a door. 3 months after that visit, Harper called me with news. Julian had been found dead in his cell, apparent self-inflicted death. I felt a brief shock, then a quiet sorrow for the people left behind. Then I went back to my life. Because the real ending of this story isn't her downfall. It's my decision not to let it be mine. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened. Take care.